Say it again.
What is your name?
My name is Cabanayan.
Do you have any fears surrounding your identity being a person of the LGBT community and of color?
I think that anytime that you're a member of a marginalized community or you hold an identity that is marginalized by larger society, there is a danger just in existing and in interacting with the larger society as a whole.
Cis people are individuals who identify and conform to their assigned sex. Those who happen to be of color and are or are assumed to be heterosexual already have it hard. According to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, African Americans and Latinos had comprised 58% of all prisoners in 2008, even though African Americans and Latinos made up approximately 1/4 of the U.S. population at this time.
As of 2014, about 3,137 Black and Latino individuals were incarcerated per 200,000 individuals, while only 450 white individuals were incarcerated per 100,000. It is apparent that more often people of color are targeted and incarcerated more than white individuals. Similar to the general population of people of color, gay, transgender, and gender nonconforming youth are significantly overrepresented in the juvenile justice system. Approximately 300,000 gay and transgender youth are arrested and or detained each year, of which more than 60% are Black or Latino. Although gay and transgender youth represent just 5% to 7% of the nation's overall youth population, they compose 13% to 15% of those currently in the juvenile justice system. Overall, almost 1 in 6 transgender people have been incarcerated at some point in their lives.
Do you ever feel targeted by a group of people in general? If so, who do you feel targeted by?
I think, like I said, anytime that you hold a marginalized identity, you feel that pressure from members of society who are in positions of power. And so, on like a broad scale, we're talking about like white people, straight people, cisgender people, people who are able-bodied, that kind of thing. And I guess more specifically, people who hold very specific positions of power and not just experiencing privilege, but whose jobs are actually, in those positions. So people like policemen, people like who work in like the federal system, so like judges and things like that.
What is your knowledge of how LGBT people of color are treated behind bars and prisons?
I know that oftentimes the people who experience the most police brutality are people of color, and that's something that we've been talking a lot about within the past like few years. But that's something that's not a new occurrence. That's something that's been happening for a long time. When you're a member of multiple marginalized communities, you're put in an even greater risk of that kind of thing. For example, transgender women, especially Black transgender women, are especially targeted. I think it's something like close to 50% of Black transgender women will have experienced arrest at some point in their life.
A 2007 study funded by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation found an astounding 67% of gay or transgender men have been sexually assaulted by another inmate, a rate of 15 times higher than the overall inmate population. There is an obvious issue of extreme violence and discrimination in prisons towards certain populations.
Along with the high risks of violence in prisons for LGBT people of color, gay and transgender youth have been subjected to reparative or conversion therapy to change their sexual orientation by both social workers and the courts, even though so-called reparative or conversion therapy has been condemned by every major health organization, including the American Medical Association, American Psychological Association, and the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry. How do you think this discrimination outside of prisons and the violence inside of prisons be fixed? Do you think it can be fixed?
I really don't think that it can be fixed. I think that the judicial system as it stands is corrupt. And I don't believe that a punitive system is the answer to crime. I think that we need to focus a lot more on restorative justice, and on, you know, not just healing the symptoms, but the causes of these things. So why are these people being arrested? A lot of the times it's people who are being wrongfully arrested, who don't know their rights, and even if they do know their rights, are experiencing other forms of discrimination, like racism and classism, that are affecting the way that the police are treating them. If people are actually committing crimes, why are they committing crimes? Like, what kind of crimes are they committing? What kind of things are they being arrested for that other people aren't being arrested for? There's a lot of different things at play, aside from whether or not there is a problem with the prison system. It's the entire prison system as a whole is the problem.
Jails and prisons are very traumatizing and often dangerous places, especially for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people of color, and anyone who is gender nonconforming. Being LGBTQ in a United States jail or prison often means daily humiliation, physical and sexual abuse, and feeling it will get worse if you complain. There are so many LGBTQ people who are placed in solitary confinement for months or years just because of who they are.
The only way this issue of extreme violence can be resolved is by spreading awareness of this inhumane treatment. Some individuals in our community are forced to live as though it is their last day because they don't know if they'll be that unlucky person incarcerated just for not conforming to their assigned sex. These are parents, siblings, family members, friends. It is very likely that during your life you will meet someone who is affected by this issue, whether you realize it or not. Those of us who have the power to do so must speak out and uplift the voices of those who are being oppressed before it is too late.
Yeah, I think it's just, in general, it's really important to look at the problem of mistreatment of LGBT people of color in the prison system as, like I said, a symptom of something that's larger, you know, because these things are happening because of aggressions that we feel every day as LGBT people of color, but like on a larger scale, So these are things like homophobia, transphobia, racism, classism, ableism. Like, all of these things are just culminating in the wrongful arrest and mistreatment of LGBT people of color in the prison system.